Lander side, representing Slow Food Wind River, which is a fairly new nonprofit organization in the region that really focuses on local food. So I've got my team of experts with me today, and all of us have a long time passion, long time experience in local food. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But just so we can read the room, raise your hand if you raise local food in our community. Okay, so we've got some. And I'll talk mostly, I use the word beef, but today in this context, we're going to talk about all kinds of local proteins except tofu, but the real beef, meat, goat, sheep, lamb, rabbits, chickens, whatever kind of meat you raise and sell locally. And we're going to try today in the next little while to help everybody kind of understand the opportunities that are here and ways to navigate from the traditional ways we've always raised beef here in Wyoming to some new opportunities that have come up and new ways to help get what we do best onto local plates. So I've got with me Melissa Hemken, who's here with the USDA Regional Food Business Center. You might know her as Melissa Hoff, famed for raising heritage chickens and eggs in a real unique model of farming outside of Lander. And then both Steve and Morgan Doyle, who've been longtime farmers in the region, have raised lots of different kinds of food and lots of different methods. Here representing both Fremont Local Foods, which we hope you all know is the local brick and mortar farmers market here in Riverton, and Red Roof Meat Company, which Morgan has started and is building into a really cool little local meat enterprise in our county. So I'm going to start with kind of an introduction, a little bit of background, and then we're just going to open it up to have a conversation with you all about why we're not eating more local beef, why we're not, how we can kind of grease the wheels of this opportunity. Each one of us could sit here for hours and tell you about why you should be doing it. We're all passionate about it, and we all have our different angles, whether it's because it's good for the economy or our environment or your personal health or helping your neighbor. You know, one of our favorite local beef producers, Tyler McCann, often says the best thing you can do for your health, the economy, the environment, your neighborhood, is to shake the hand of your local farmer. And we all totally believe that. So traditionally, in our community, most of us have sold beef at our local feedlot or directly to a feedlot or through our local live auction. We want to talk to you about opportunities today that are pretty new. Fremont Local Market and Meadowlark Market in Lander, both year-round brick-and-mortar farmers markets that sell on a commission basis or not wholesale, depending on your product. We've had an explosion of new farmers markets that are open seasonally, as you know, so it's another opportunity. And then a lot of us have done direct-to-consumer sales, trading or swapping for a half beef with your neighbor, which you've done for years and years. And those are all good ways to sell beef. We want to talk about some of the advantages to those. Like I said, we have hundreds of arguments of why this is important to us and our local community. Not just our personal families and our personal small businesses, but our clubs, our neighbors, our environment, our programs, our government. We are really Wyoming-based, really Wyoming-focused, and we think CWC actually captured it really well in their marketing brand of grow your own. And we totally agree with this. We think you should grow your own food, and that helps us grow our own jobs, that helps us grow our community. So CWC has done it really well with the labeling, and we want to help you guys get into this swing of how to do that well. This and the next couple of numbers I'll throw at you come directly from a CWC website, a storyboard they've built, that I'm assigning you all as homework. There'll be a quiz tomorrow about it. But this kind of numbers show you this story. In 2017, almost 1 million cattle were sold in Wyoming. Only 75,000 of those cattle were raised here to butcher weight, and of those 5,000 were butchered here for local consumption in the state of Wyoming. 60% of our income from ag comes from beef. Why aren't we eating it? And then the point is that although we grow some of the highest quality beef, we export it, and then we import crap meat, pink slime from wherever else to feed our families. We want to change that. Because what it equates to, you take a 1,200-pound steer, you get less than 500 pounds of meat. And if you average that by the 5,000 steer that we process, and the 500,000 people we're trying to feed, That gets everybody a quarter pounder a year. And we think you can eat more beef than that. We know people are buying more beef than that. This, again, comes from that storyboard that I think you all should read and study. Just keeping it even more local, focused specifically on Fremont County. In 2020, people purchased $14.5 million worth of egg and beef products, meat products in Fremont County. 71% of that was beef. So imagine the income if we're talking about buying that meat that was born, raised, fed, slaughtered, processed here in Wyoming. That's millions of dollars we're talking about. And again, economy is just one of the talking points. So as we know, that's the easy part, right? Why do we do it? But here's what we want to talk about today is the nuts and bolts of the how. How do we get our meat local? So I'm kind of going to turn it over to these guys. We know that the bottleneck is the butchering. And we want to hear your input on how you have handled that and some thoughts that you have behind it. Steve is going to talk a little bit about the legislation, about how that's changed in the last 10 years and what opportunities that's opened for you. Morgan is going to mention a little bit about different opportunities, different ways, creative ways that people have used to not just sell steaks, but diversify your product, how to work with existing resources here to get that all the way to retail packs. And then Melissa has some great ideas and thoughts about USDA support. And they're actually very generous at the moment in greasing the wheel. We've received funding recently to help set these systems up to get people like you. We're talking about 1 or 2 head a year off your normal shuttling out just to feed it locally, the opportunities. So here we are. We're from Fremont Local Market, Meadowlark Market, the USDA, Red Roof Meat Company. And again, we don't have a CWC representative here, but we do partner with them in their meat science lab to try and work this through. But just so you know, because it's been a history of like long barriers and blocks, we'll get Steve here to talk about what things have opened up for us in terms of legislation and changes to food laws and things in our state.
Thank you, Anna. My name's Steve Doyle, and I'm not an expert in anything. I was a Coast Guard guy, and then a ship guy, and then I got here. And witnessed a lot of stuff that was happening in third world countries going on here, just as much. Now, owning a farm certainly changed my perspective. But one of the big part was like, well, I'm not getting paid enough for this kind of work. So I got involved in the local food movement with Sue Wallace. And I don't know, she's a representative from, Recluse, Wyoming. And she was a firebrand. She pushed for the Food Freedom Act for her whole life. In the end, couldn't get it passed. And the reason was meat. When the USDA caught wind of what she was proposing, they said, no good on the meat. If you pursue this, in fact, the USDA will have to take a look at our state inspection program. It was a threat, not even veiled. So Tyler Lindholm, when she passed away, he took the job. So I will bring it forth through legislation, and he did. And the way he did it was by removing meat from the act, and then walking to all the different constituents, I guess. And in 2015, the bill was passed. It's huge what difference was made. So our little farmers markets, which we've been running now for years, if you wanted a head of lettuce under our laws, I could sell you that head of lettuce. But you said, I need you to cut it in half, the customer says, to put it in the bag. Sorry, I can't do that. Because now I have to have a certified kitchen inspected, paid for, to slice it in half. Well, that's ridiculous. With the Food Freedom Act, that was no longer the case. And the big one for us was raw milk. But there was all sorts of different ones. But it took a few years to sort of catch in. But in about 4 years ago, we decided, we've got enough producers here at our farmer's market, we could probably go with a year-round gig. And that's what we did. We built a brick and mortar there on Main Street. We have 100 producers now. And there's more that would like to come in the door. We've just run out of room. And I will tell you that our sales, and this isn't a boast, this is 100 producers, about $30,000 a month. And about 3,000 of that comes from meat. It could be twice that. It could be 5 times that. The problem is getting the beef into the market. A lot of folks come in and there's nothing left on the shelves. And as producers, we can tell you, yep, the choke point is the butcher or the slaughter facility. As a side note, we're able to produce up to 1,000 chickens and slaughter them, butcher them on our farm. And we do that as well. But we don't, without those regulatory obstacles, it's amazing what we can do. Now, we didn't expect 40 people in here, we expected 4. That we would, sit here and discuss, like, what's the plan? Because we have been pushing this. Now, our store really, we need it. Down in Lander, they need it as well. How do we get beef from your farm processed and onto and into our shelves? One thing I think we can talk to in a bit is the Prime Act. Are you familiar with the Prime Act? Yeah, okay, we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But I think we need to go here to you, Morgan, who have been selling beef in the market, and what it's taken for you to do it. That sound good?
Okay. Alrighty, I'm Morgan Doyle. I started Red Roof Meat Company, probably about 4 years ago now. And when we first started, we were just getting fed up, taking them down to the sale barn. We're losing money, we're doing things differently, we're getting docked for a bunch of stuff that we're not doing traditional around here. And so we said, let's try something new. I feel like it was pretty much every Hallmark movie going around right now. Daughter returns home, says, oh, we're gonna switch everything up, we're gonna do it this way, we're gonna sell direct to consumer, and everybody has a happy ending, and it's fantastic. It wasn't like that. There was a lot of learning curves in there. But we started doing kind of a herd share program because we couldn't get into the local USDA plans. And that was a ton of work. Was it worthwhile? It got me started, but I'm very glad to be done with it. Now we've kind of switched over. We're using USDA plants. We were working with Genuine Meats. We're working actually with CWC, and I see Amanda here, and that's Travis Bartlett over there. That's where I take all my lamb now. And we're selling at retail locations. So in the beginning, to start, there was not much market. Not when you could go to the grocery store and get it cheaper, get it more convenient. You weren't waiting for the weekend for a local farmer's market with, maybe 20 booths, and probably 15 of them were craft vendors. And it wasn't a big draw in the beginning, but in the last even 2 or 3 years, it's exploded. Now there's local foods everywhere. That was a good opportunity. I got to meet, engage with these customers, form relationships with them. I know their dog's name, I know their kid's name, and that brought a really personal touch to it. And that was essential, I think, for me starting out. Now, my brand may be a little bit more recognized, at least with the people who've been buying from me. There's a little bit more brand loyalty. And this year I plan to step away and not sit those farmers markets anymore. I'm selling, all of my goods will be at the retail locations. I sell at Meadowlark and at the Fremont local market in Riverton. And for those of you who may not have sold at farmers markets before, it's about an hour and a half to pack up all your goods. Then you drive down to the market, you set up your table, you set up your display, and you sit there with your big customer service smile on. Starts to get a little old, and you sell for 2 hours, sometimes 3, depending on what market you're at. You pay your fee, and then you get to pack everything back up, you get to drive home. So it was it was 5-6 hours, and then if you had any product you had to prep beforehand. It was a lot. It was a lot of time wasted where, I could be at home, catching up on the workload, doing other things. So with these stores, I don't have that anymore. I take product in whenever I have time to do it. It's just opened up a lot of doors. So I think my dad always says it leverages the farmer's time. You're not sitting there, you've got somebody else, you've got some really, really cool employees at both locations, great smiles on their face. They're way better suited to do that than some of us. And they're moving numbers, and I think that it'll continue to pick up. I think sales will continue to improve as more and more people will start to recognize the importance of shopping local, supporting local, and just what it does for the community. So.
And I can tack on to what Morgan mentioned too, in terms of the economics of it, and Steve mentioned $30,000 worth of sales a month. The Meadowlark Market in Lander turned over, or brought in, gross, $250,000 since, from March 1st to December 31st last
That's
year.
your first year in operation,
That's
right?
the first year in operation, and part of that was me. And the USDA has a program called Food Dollar Series, and they monitor how much of every dollar an American spends goes to the various parts of food, a food dollar. So nationwide, 15 cents on every dollar goes back to the farmer. I mean, that enough pisses you off. But at the market, at our markets, these markets, 80 cents on every dollar goes straight back to the farmer. And that's not just going to the farmer, that's staying in the community. That's paying for your neighbor's ballet lessons or whatever. I mean, that's here. So I think, again, this is a proof in the pudding that there's sales here, there's demand for it. People want to hear this story about local food. They want to know where the food comes from. They want to meet their farmer.
So where do you get your meat processed at?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really, we don't really have the answers. We have questions ourselves, but we have been beating a path. And this is kind of how it's set up so far. We're able to take our animals to the processor, and in some cases, if they have room, we can take advantage of that. The USDA stamp at this point, or a state inspected stamp, is what we need to sell retail meat, correct? You guys understand, a custom facility will process your meat, not meat that you want to sell to the other guys. In that case, it has to be state inspected. There's 6 state inspected facilities in Wyoming, according to the Wyoming Department of Ag website. 6. I don't know where they are. Anybody? Do you know where they are?
Frank's is state inspected.
Is Frank's a state? Okay.
No, Frank's is not, Frank's is
Oh,
USDA.
Frank's
Yeah.
is USDA, sorry.
Yeah,
Right, thanks.
that's what I thought.
That's
So,
right. Cass
Yeah,
is
speak up, come up and stand up.
Yeah, please.
Hi.
I'm not part of the meat science program anymore, but I have a lot of knowledge from this.
Yay, share.
A lot of the state inspected decided to go USDA, and part of that is because some of the regulations that state inspection was doing, they were supposed to be better than USDA, right? Well, they were harder and they were inconsistent. So a lot of the plants that were state inspected went to USDA. So that's why there's only 6 still in the state. A lot of them transferred over, because when it was not Frank's, when it was Jared running the Wyoming custom meats over there, he was state inspected, and then he went USDA. So a lot of them have transferred over. Some of them that are even custom exempt have tried to switch over, but there's a lot of regulations and upgrades and things sometimes to older plants that they have to qualify for. I'm still part of a meat grant program. That's a 6-state meat grant program, and we do have some funding to help people with marketing and things within this area. And for those that want to apply to, I know Morgan's working on trying to maybe eventually process her own animals. There are grants out there that came about. We got like a $60 million grant that they split it up. And so we do have grants out there with the program. So if anybody's interested in that, they can get a hold of me and I can send you to the right place. But I wanted to interrupt about the change, because so many of us in the state had felt like, because originally our CWC meat science program was supposed to be, custom exempt, just only. But when I went to do a lot of the paperwork, it was so much easier to do USDA, cause we were a brand new plant, it was so easy to just make it work as USDA, so.
Amanda, now is the difference between state and USDA you can ship out of state?
Yes, yes. State, you can sell to consumers around the state, but USDA, to cross the state lines, you have to be a USDA plant. And you can cross the country, to another country and ship USDA, so, there's that benefit of it. A lot of the USDA, inspectors themselves, they're shorthanded, so sometimes you have to share inspectors until they find somebody. CABC finally got their own this fall. So we have our own inspectors, so we have a little more freedom when we can slaughter and things. But yeah, there's a big difference because of the state regulations. And I'm not trying to bash the Department of Ag, but they're not training some of their staff enough to know some of the knowledge, and they come in and it's very stressful. Many plants, they say that's the hardest part, is even getting through that initial food inspection with them. So even though they passed USDA's inspection, so, there's that. So didn't mean to interrupt, so.
Great, thank you, Amanda. So we got 25 custom producers, custom processors. That won't help us in our store, won't help you out of retail. And then the USDA, what we're finding is that they're geared for something different than meat with a handful of cows. They're a lot. I was at Genuine Meats about 3 weeks ago. They're sending out box beef. You might have seen their big commercial with, on X, I guess. Man, they're
You're
going.
on X?
Huh?
Sorry.
What?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so they're not really suited to us. We go in, we like them this big, we want, hamburgers and this. Nah, they don't fool with that. They're pushing out product. They're not fitting our needs. So one thing we're trying to do right now, and I think we're gonna be able to, we're gonna talk a little bit about the Prime Act, but something we can do now is get to those processors and get the slaughter done at a USDA site. I think my daughter can speak much more intelligently than I. But once you got that USDA stamp, you gotta keep it. And you gotta figure out how to turn that into beef. So the thinking that working with CWC, our community college, is breaking down into primals, something that we can handle in a smaller size, and then bring it to a local butcher to finish out that processing there.
What you're saying, you butcher it and have it hanging and then bring it home and butcher it yourself? Once
It
it's
would-
stamped?
Yes,
would-
you can.
Essentially, but it would still have to go to an inspected place if you're going to sell to the retail. With the retail exemption, from my understanding thus far, is you can have it slaughtered under the USDA, and then it would not keep that USDA stamp if you brought it to your retail or to your inspected place to have it further cut into your steaks or broke down, similar to how like Smedts meat would work. They're not a USDA plant, but they're an inspected space so that it can sell value added, I guess, value added by cutting and packaging differently. That's how they operate. That's how we can help alleviate some of the bottlenecks on these facilities who are packed.
Yeah, talk to.
Clark's has done it.
We've talked to one of our inspectors, the consumer health inspectors, and said, yeah, this is a way we can go. Same thing, one more time. The flow is off your farm over to a USDA plant who does the slaughter. Of course, now you're gonna need to find some cooling, holding pattern. And then to a butcher who's approved by the state, been inspected, but that moves it, because otherwise, you've been bringing beef up to what, Hyattville? That's a rough, I thought, yeah, it doesn't, at the small size, we don't have that, the advantage of being huge. We really gotta watch our dollars and cents on every one of these animals. Hyattville doesn't work. We have folks who are going up to Sheridan. That doesn't work for us, not for the producer.
No.
So what we're pushing now is to get those butcher shops opened.
Okay.
We haven't got it opened yet, but we have got good promises through CWC, and I think we can work with the other guys as well. Just bust it down into primals, and we'll take it from there. Talk, okay, a little bit about this Prime Act. The Prime Act. So during the COVID, right, all these, mysteriously, all these packing houses started going up in flames. And all of a sudden, there's no beef. Like there right now, there's no eggs. By the way, we have eggs at our store, right down there on Main Street, 542.
There's what?
So I was, Matty, I think his name is. Anyway, the Kentucky representative said, hey, let's go with this Prime Act, which would allow states to basically regulate their own commerce. That's right in the Constitution twice. And it would allow the states to decide whether we can sell direct to the customer and what it would take. You know, hoops that we need to jump through. And there would still be some. But it's a lot easier talking to our local, our Wyoming Department of Ag as opposed to the Federal Department of Ag. Just can't get through to them. I don't have it. What it would allow is our nationwide would allow our custom producers to break down a fellow's animals and allow him to sell retail. And why? Well, one of the reasons is because nobody's gotten sick from any of those cows coming out of those custom houses for like a decade or two. It's safe. It's safe. The reason it's there is, like so many things, the laws got stuck in there and it just doesn't go away. Well, I would have told you 6 months ago that at the federal level, there's no way this is going to pass. Now, maybe it will. Things are really changing. And since constitutionally it's not supported, and USDA has no business regulating your sales to a customer within the state, right? Within intrastate commerce. It's going really slow, so our Senator Salazar, who I think is, where is he on the Freedom Caucus in Wyoming? He is it, right? He's one of them. Anyway, so let's just do this in Wyoming. Screw the rest of them. If you guys don't want this, you don't have to have it. Tennessee or North Carolina or whatever. Now, whether that'll happen, whether they'll get passed, don't know. Last year, the state's what did he call that? Trigger bill said, we're going to do this. As soon as the federal government passes that law, Wyoming's on board. And they said, forget it. I'm not waiting for the feds to figure it out. We'll just do it ourselves. The Food Freedom Act, going back to that. We're the first, Wyoming. We're the first, by the way, to develop the LLC, which is kind of cool. This happens. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so we passed it in 2015, and since then, there's been 4 states that have jumped on board. In Wyoming, I think we were the first Freedom Food Store. I think there's 14 or 15 of them now. That's in 2 years' time. And I know folks in Green River are trying to start one, folks down in Rawlins are trying to start one, somebody up in Thermopolis. And the other states see this, and they're trying to jump on board. And the big ones right now are Utah, which is really not much of a surprise, Maine, and one of I think North Dakota. The thinking there is if we pass our own Prime Act and we allow farmers to use custom processors to sell retail meat, the rest of the states will jump on board too. Because it's a powerful amount of money, as Amanda had pointed out. We're losing at this game of raising beef. We get government subsidies, thank God. Otherwise, we'd be toast. I was thinking, man, if you get rid of all the cows in Colorado, they're going that way anyway. That's not where we're headed. This is where we're heading. We're heading for a local food market. We used to have one, not food market, but Uh, hmm?
Meat counter.
Our,
I'm trying to help, I'm probably just making it worse.
we get a lot of this. What was I gonna say, hon? Well, what you were talking about. Anyway, it's, the local food economy is important, and it's gonna be becoming more important. Anybody can see it. The changes going on right now say we're going to have a local economy based on food. It just makes sense. Keeping the food, the meat and dollars, the food dollars local. I don't got anything more to say to that, except that the Prime Act, being looked at the federal level, could happen. The Prime Act at the local, at the state level could happen as well.
Got a question.
I have a question for
Yeah,
you.
man.
So, I know that we were looking at, some producers were looking at having CWC, process some beef, and then they were taking it over to Sweet Cheeks in Jackson to have them cut up at their butcher shop. And I know then it's not USDA at that butcher shop, then it's a state inspected for retail. So, is that gonna, I mean, isn't that already what you want it to do? Is that, or is that different than what you're wanting it just to be the custom ends?
Well, what we need, I think, to make that work is the butcher here. No, I think that is it. I think you're talking about the process in a nutshell. I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, cause she said it had to be slaughtered, the USDA, and she could
Yep.
take it to them.
Yep.
To be able to cut up, and
Yep.
so, I mean, I asked those questions. I know that, when I looked at doing a retail sales part at the college, that we would have to get the license through the state, so it would be state inspected for the retail, the rest would be USDA. So, I mean, there is opportunities if you can get it slaughtered, to then open your own butcher shop or a butcher facility and be able to cut it up and process it and sell it, so.
Yeah. That's what we're looking to do, right
Yeah.
there, in a nutshell. Not just here in Riverton, but, you know, in every little
Right.
town here.
Right,
Could a person, if you're doing that, maybe you're saying this and I'm missing it, but if you get it killed at the USDA plant,
Mhm.
you take the primals, cut how you want, could your cut facility then just make sure that you're the USDA standards and be able to keep that USDA to be able
You
to
need
ship
to
it?
be able to, well, if you wanna ship it across the border, you have to have it, the whole thing USDA. If you're gonna sell it retail to the state of Wyoming, you can take it and put it in a butcher shop. That's how like Smedts and that does it, because they're state inspected within their facility, and that's how they can sell it retail.
But
So you-
what I'm asking is, so when you're killing, you gotta have an inspector on
Yes.
site at the time as you kill that.
Yes,
Do you have, if you've got inspectors that are inspecting your facilities, those things like that, do you have to have one on payroll the whole time you're cutting it up, or can you
well,
do that and still maintain that USDA thing?
it's a couple of different layers to that, so no processing plant pays their USDA inspector, the federal government does, so they're not paying them.
I understand,
so
but you have to have it.
But to keep it all USDA, they have to be there at the point that they're cutting it up to. They don't stand in there and watch you necessarily, they come in a little bit, but they inspect the plant prior, they inspect the plant after, they inspect your paperwork, but that's how you can do it. Now, you as a USDA plant can have that license, or you can sell it wholesale, so they could cut it into primals and sell it to Morgan and them, so then they can take it and so, you know, do those things, but we can sell wholesale.
Maybe you could help me, Amanda. So, last year at the Beef Roundup, met a rancher who was building a USDA plant down in Lyman, somewhere in that area. He was $3 million into building this USDA plant, and he hadn't quite finished up yet.
Right.
$3 million. Okay, so Amanda, what do you think you could, equipment-wise, what would it take to,
You know, I don't know price-wise, because I wasn't in on purchasing the equipment that we use, but when Morgan worked for me at the meat plant, we had the mobile stuff, and so, you know, we had bought a bunch of mobile stuff and made it work USDA.
yeah.
So, I mean, there's ways to do it cheaper than building a brick and mortar. Is it good for Wyoming to have the mobile? It freezes all the time, so it's difficult to do. So there's opportunities to do it, not at such a large scale like we were doing
Yeah.
at the college for a while, that cost less, cause I know we had a $750,000 grant to start with, and we bought the mobile slaughter, the cut up trailer and the freezers and all of that, with all of that.
I can tell you that when Riverton Packing was up for sale, now this is a few years ago, I think they wanted 200 grand
Yeah,
for the facility.
Yeah.
Now, it needed upgrading, the
It
folks
did.
who went in there did a lot of it, but 3,200,000.
but they're
And
not
that, we
USDA.
found that really passed down
Right,
to the producer.
yeah, and they're not USDA, and so
No.
they don't.
No,
they-
but that's
They have
exact,
the inspector come in once or twice a year,
Yeah.
where USDA inspector is there every day.
Does that answer your question? Kind of. So once you get that stamp on it, right, you have the USDA stamp on your carcass hanging in the cooler, it needs to stay in a USDA inspected facility to keep that USDA
that,
bug all the way
Yes.
to your end.
So you
label.
have to have those inspectors through that whole process.
Yes.
That's
Only
why,
if you wanna
okay,
ship,
that-
only if you
that's
wanna
And
ship
clever.
that's
out of
only if
state.
you're going over state lines,
Yeah.
but if you have that stamp on that, you'll lose
Understand.
it if you take it to a spot that's not
So you
USDA.
can still
You
sell it
lose
in
it.
state.
yes,
I'm just trying to get through my mind, I know this is local and you're talking 1 or 2 cattle a year or something, but I'm trying to think of something that if you were more volume than that, and you may not be able to get everything, I mean, cause part of it is you gotta sell the entire cow or steer, whatever. To be able to do something more on the line of a Omaha steaks or something that way, only with quality instead of that. But, where you would be able to do that, or just what you would have to have.
So
Just
that
trying
would
to get
be
that straight in my mind.
the
Yeah.
USDA all the way through, and that's what we have up there now at Genuine Meats with those
Correct.
beef bundles.
Yeah, I think we've had quite a few different options. So the Prime Act is one, like custom
Right.
exempt, selling retail is one option. If you do go on USDA and wanna sell steak, just go to USDA plant, like don't try to get your own butcher shop up unless you really wanna go that way. But for working with Meadowlark and Fremont Local Market and selling retail through them, one of the things that's forming is how do we solve that bottleneck and not have producers trucking live animals all over the state and then have to go get all the packaged meat back? And so with that is the thought, oh, it could be slaughtered at a state inspected plant, but there's not any in this part of the state. So, okay, they can get slaughtered, cut down to a primal at a USDA, and then take them to a state inspected cut and pack butcher shop, and then sold retail. So a couple options are going on. Nice thing is when you have buildings and you have space, right? So Fremont Local's down on Main Street. What's your address down there?
542?
542.
524.
Yeah.
That's Morgan, not Steve. 524 East
Oh, no, I'm
Main
not
Street.
getting my mail.
And there's space in the back, alley access, needs some renovation. The roof doesn't leak anymore, Steve fixed that, but there's options, right? Meadowlark already in the back is in a former restaurant and has a full commercial state inspected kitchen already. Smaller building than what Fremont Local's in, but there's options there and ways to look at it and how do you collaborate with the staff that's already on site, that already being the retail location. And so that's a lot of the conversations going on, whether you're doing 3 steers a year or you wanna do 60, like how much beef, lamb, do you guys, poultry, I raise chickens too, chickens are good. How much do you think is moving? So, Fremont Local opened October 2022.
Okay.
Off the top of your head, how much meat do you think you sold out of there in the last?
I couldn't tell you on pounds, but probably,
By the hoof, how many?
yeah, pounds wise, yeah, it's, we're about 10% of our sales, though, that'd be 30,000 a
Doing
year.
some math?
Yeah,
Well, they're thinking, what do you think
Yeah,
that
I
looks
think in
like?
Lander, we've probably sold 6 to 8 steers or beef animal, we've sold maybe
Well-
5 or 6 lambs, a
And
couple
every time I
hundred
walk in
chickens.
there, it's
Yeah.
kinda looking
so,
empty in the land.
yeah,
of
we're
beef.
doing,
Yep.
yeah, 1 steer a month,
Yeah,
so 12.
yeah,
But with lots of room, we run out.
More.
absolutely. We
I
had
got
it,
a
so-
crazy question. Reefers already set up for food. All reefers, they're on, are set for food. Why couldn't a guy set up a meat packing tank in there, could you get a portable one like that? Inspected through the state and be able to go around and put,
Like a Connex box, big shipping containers, right? You could fit that out, you can,
well, just a truck reefer,
Oh, okay, on Max
Okay,
Street.
they're already for food, or there would be a reaper. Okay, you take an old reaper, set it up right. You could bring the meat in the back on the rail like they used to. Okay, you have a cooling unit there, pick up from the USDA, cooling unit, a meat cut room in the middle, and a freezer in the front. And
Yeah.
it could be portable.
Those,
you could do
those
it
are the
anywhere.
kinds of ideas we talk about all the time, and CWC has got a mobile meat unit that's just really similar to what you're describing. What we're short on is people that wanna do that job. People that have got the capital to invest into that startup and then maintain it. So, and I think we're short on that because we don't have enough producers that are willing to kickstart this whole system
But you can
locally.
buy an old decent reaper for $4,500.
No, it's not much, it seems like not much.
Huh.
Then you gotta hire somebody to run it, and then you gotta have insurance, and, I mean, there's a lot of capital investment and time investment that goes into it, but we believe it can happen. And what we like to talk about is, we believe there's enough momentum right now to support it. We believe there's customers enough that you will earn your money back if you wanna invest in that kind of a business model. And that the law is set up to support it, the customer base is there, the markets are here to help if you don't sell out of the truck, whatever. That's what we're talking about, how do we get past this bottleneck? And who in here who's invested in the beef market or meat market is gonna help out with that?
And with that, if you want to be part of the conversation going forward, I have this little sign-up sheet, you can put your name on, and your email, or your phone number. Because kind of where we're at is, there's some funding available through the USDA Northwestern Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center. I'm the Wyoming co-lead of that, it covers 6 states. It's available for post-production, which means it's not gonna help you raise the animal, but it'll look at the value added cut side, which is what we're talking about here. And how could we use some of that funding and some of all the conversation momentum, and we know customer demand, just in Lander and Riverton, to kind of pull ourselves together and get meat to our communities here and get you all the sales for your animals.
Yeah, just set up one of the meat things, I heard what they cost up CWC, I thought, man, that's crazy. But, I mean, stainless steel meat saw and the grinder and that ain't that expensive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. You haven't looked at prices anymore. I mean, to do it as a commercial, it is. And we're looking at,
There should be a bunch of, I've cut you, by the way.
yeah.
Quite a bit. And that equipment's laying around different places, that's still stainless steel is, I don't understand why it should cost so much, I'm sorry.
Everything costs a lot.
Yeah, but
I
you
can
don't
promise
have
you, if it was
brand
easy,
new.
we would've done it already. Which way of doing it.
Yeah, inflation's just gonna get worse. One thing, yeah,
Well,
I've
another
missed
thing that's not necessarily brought up is, along with the customer base here, is that there's schools, there's hospitals, there's a lot of programs, and they're offering these farm-to-school programs where they can get a little bit more money to purchase from local farmers than what they can, offer out for the Cisco truck. So getting those relationships formed with the schools, hospitals, all around here is another huge opportunity that you're talking serious numbers, where maybe it's not just the ones and twosies. If you're looking to do something on a little bit bigger scale, that is a good opportunity as well.
and they're also big ground beef customers.
Yes.
If you're looking at,
Well, and
Cull cows,
Bobby Lane is around here that's in charge of that.
and I wish I had his card on me, still I
And
don't.
so he would be one to talk to about getting, because they have actual plants in the state set up for appointments if they can find people that wanna do that.
And another one would be Odessa Oldham, if anyone's familiar with her. She has purchasing power for the food banks. So getting local meat and products to the food banks, and the numbers that she mentioned to me were actually quite bigger numbers that she would be wanting to take than I originally thought. I mean, a couple beef a month, possibly more, as they start to expand and cover more areas of the state. I think she only deals in kind of this general area, but lots of connections there as well.
one question I have for you all, because you all are kind of interfacing more with customers. What are the customers wanting? Say Meadowlark and Fremont local customers. What are they wanting for lamb, beef? What are they saying that they're looking for?
Customers in Lander in particular that I'm familiar with are interested in grass-fed, but not own only grass-fed, they want a good quality steak, and they wanna know the story behind it. They wanna know where it was raised, they wanna know what family it came out of, whose brand has been on it. They want, some of the more specialty cuts. They wanna know about the terroir of the beef, you know, the flavor that you're selling with it. They're not so particular about the prices per pound, so that's a big, opportunity for a markup on your cattle that you put your value into. But they wanna know that that was an animal that was treated right, you know, not antibiotics and hormones. They like that kind of a label or branding that goes with it, and they wanna know that what you've done, regenerative farming, for example, is an important selling point with the lander base. They wanna know that you take care of the land as well as the animals, and that you have a story behind it.
On the Riverton side, maybe a little more sensitive on price, but definitely is the story. I think most of those guys come in are supporting the story of local. You don't get to figure out where it came from when you buy it in the store. Here, you ask any of those guys in there that have beef or selling meat, and they wanna come out and see your operation, I think pretty much every single one of them would be happy to drag you around their place, show you the animals, show you how they do things, what's going on, and sometimes that's what the customers need. They want to see what happens. They don't know anything past picking it up in a little plastic sack in the store. There's a huge disconnect, and something to help fill that gap of knowledge of this is, no, don't watch all the shows, all the movies, and all the videos going around. This is how we do it local. This is how a local rancher raises, spends hours out there every night in calving season. It's not just a, I don't know how you describe it. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more story to it.
And it's a huge value out of these new local food markets. I mean, the managers there, the shopkeepers there on the floor, they are there and can tell the story. You don't have to market yourself. So as a farmer, I've always struggled. I gotta be an economist and a bookkeeper and a botanist and an advertiser and all of these too many hats that I'm not interested in. When I can take my meat there and trust that the person who's representing it cares about my family, cares about my story, and can communicate that's so much value, you know, in getting that sold. My time, my reputation comes down, and it's taken care of year-round. It's 5-6 days a week, someone is marketing for me. And that's, I think, an understated value of selling locally.
With, you know, there's a bit of a lag time. You have to raise the animal up, and you have to plan ahead for sales if you're selling local meats. What are some recommendations for you all, like getting started with Fremont Local and Meadowlark, but you won't have a calf ready to butcher till this fall? Like, what are some thoughts for folks to think about with budgeting, getting going?
Well, I can do it now. Go in and talk to those managers. Start making these connections, and you know, if you're on a bigger scale, go in and start talking to those schools. Start putting your name in there. Start working these you know, places where you can sell locally. The more you talk with them, the more you let them know, like, hey, I'm not set up right now, but you know, X, Y, Z down the road, this is something that's really interesting. Make those connections now.
And the markets are really excited to help sponsor things. You know, they wanna say, bring us your FFA lamb. We'll sell it locally. That should be on the table here. We'll sell, you know, an FFA steer. Those are animals that are already here, have already been raised, are ready to go. So, I mean, I think there's beef around. Give us your steer that missed out on the range last year, bring it in. You know,
If you can catch it.
yeah, if you can catch it this year, put it in.
Yeah.
Or set aside, you know, put a little ear tag in it. When you're tagging your calves, put one that says, this is for local people, instead of, this is going to Nebraska feedlot. So I think and this is what we wanna discuss, these creative ways. We know there's bottlenecks, we know there's challenges, but we know there's good solutions. It can be done now, and it can be done pretty easily if we get the support of the people who are in the system already.
And one thing that really helps out this group of leading the conversations for a state-inspected butcher shop, if they going talking to USDA plant to get butcher dates, can go, oh, collectively, we're gonna bring in this many steers on this date. That's pretty helpful, and more makes that packing plan a little more like, oh, okay, all of a sudden we have buying power. Versus Morgan just going, I've got 3 this month. Morgan can go, I got 30 this month, and they're from 10 different ranchers, but we'll deliver them in one load. Don't worry, it's not, you know, that is the collective power of community and how we can make it work. Any other questions? I think we're going over time on that.
Where?
Okay.
You're good.
Amanda.
So, I know, and this is a little bit different, but you're talking about having buying power and stuff. So as you guys are as producers, you know, respect the fact that, you set a date and show up. That is the biggest problem with the packing houses, is that people make appointments and they never show up. They're supposed to bring those 30 cows and they don't even show up that day.
And then you have to in turn start charging deposits because you're missing out on money by turning other people away, which comes back to the farmer, you know, he was gonna say, whoa, man, I'm taking in 15, 20 animals, now I gotta come up with $2,000 just to get them into there.
Right.
It's you gotta work together, you gotta work
You do.
together with these guys.
You have to work together and, you know, they're running a business just like you are, so respect that, so.
Well, thank you all. Please put your name and info on that sheet and we'll continue the conversation, get some stuff done.